Hi, my name is Wendy Hawkins. I'm the Education Chairman and Lights Out Winston-Salem Coordinator with Forsyth Audubon. Today, I'm here to tell you about a special program that is a collaboration between Piedmont Environmental Alliance, which is an environmental conservation organization. Forsyth Audubon is bird conservation. We're part of the National Audubon Society. And our program is centered on the curriculum standards for fourth grade, but this is of interest to anybody who would like to know about bird migration. This is the story of a wood thrush. A wood thrush is a bird that migrates, and that is a wood thrush in my hand. That bird crashed into a building window during migration, and I was able to rescue it and release it in a safe place where it could forage and rest. So, what is migration? Migration is the large-scale annual movement of all or some of a population of birds in this case, between their nesting grounds, their breeding grounds, that is, during the summer, and their non-breeding grounds during the winter. This is a range map that shows where the wood thrush spends the summer in the nesting grounds, that's the orange portion, and where it spends the winter during the non-breeding season, and the yellow is the part where they travel in between. Birds fly hundreds of miles at night during migration. There are a few birds that migrate during the day, but most of our songbirds fly at night. They travel north in the spring and south in the fall. Night flying uses a lot less energy. How would you like it if you had to flap really hard when it was noon and the sun was shining on you? I think it would be a lot of work. Birds navigate then using the moon and the stars. But do all species of birds migrate? No. Some species do not migrate at all, like the chickadee and the northern cardinal. These are here in North Carolina year-round. There are diverse strategies. That means there are different plans that birds have for their movement. Some birds, as we just saw, the chickadee and the cardinal, they are residents. They do not migrate, and they are residents in the temperate climate, like here in North America, where it's not usually too hot, too cold, too wet, or too dry. There's another resident. That bird, that parrot, does not live here. This one lives with me in my house, but this one does not migrate either. This bird lives in a tropical climate in South America, this parrot. So it's a resident there, but not here. The cardinal is a resident here, but not there. Then there are migrants, like this hummingbird. In North Carolina, we see the ruby-throated hummingbird in the summer, during the nesting season. Some migrants are complete or obligate migrants, which means they spend the nesting season in one area and their winter in a completely different area. Some species of birds are partial migrants, where some of their population will migrate while some members of the same species, another group, will not migrate, like our American robins. In some places in North America, they're year-round. In other places, they're only occurring in the winter or in the summer. And these migrants may travel short distance medium distance, or long distance, like our wood thrush, who travels thousands of miles between the nesting and the wintering grounds. Here's an example of a Baltimore Oriole, which is also a complete migrant like our wood thrush. The orange area shows the breeding or nesting grounds. The yellow area shows where the bird may fly through and spend a day or two when it's on its way south in the fall, heading toward its wintering grounds where it's warmer and it can find more food down there. Partial migrants, like the cedar waxwing, as you can see, the purple area of this range map shows where this bird is occurring year round, all the seasons. It'll be found in these very northern states. In the nesting season, though, part of their population flies up into Canada. And in the winter, part of the population of cedar waxwings flies south into the southern states and into Mexico. So it kind of depends on where your food is. If the food you eat, like the bugs perhaps that the cedar waxwing likes, are not available in some of these areas here in the summer, then you're going to travel north and you're going to find them up there. During migration, birds may run into some obstacles, like glass windows. As you can see, there's an impression left on this glass window where a bird crashed into it. Birds cannot see glass. Even we humans can't see glass very well. Sometimes we think we do, but how often have we ever run into a clean glass door or window that we did not see? And birds, since their eyes are situated more towards the sides of their head, they can't see as well right in front of them either, so it would be even harder for them to see the glass. Collisions with glass windows cause up to perhaps 1 billion bird deaths every year in the United States. That is a lot. City lights are a problem because, as we talked about, birds, a lot of birds, migrate at night and they depend on the moon and the stars. But when city lights are a problem, now the birds see stars on the ground. Those lights draw the birds off course, and disoriented birds tend to crash into building windows. So we may lose at least 100 million to 1 billion birds every year in the United States just from these window collisions during migration season. Here's another problem for birds: domestic cats. Feral cats and outdoor pets are a major threat to birds already facing natural predators. Studies show that an estimated 2.4 billion birds die each year from cats. So maybe you could keep your cats indoors. Here's another migration obstacle: shrinking habitat. Birds that migrate need important places to stop over for food and shelter and rest. But when their habitats are polluted or they're cleared off completely, how are the birds going to find places to eat and rest? It can be really difficult. And if they don't get enough energy to then fly to their next destination, they may not make it. Another migration obstacle can be pesticides or herbicides. Many birds are affected by eating insects or plants from fields or lawns that have been sprayed with pesticide or herbicides. Top predators like raptors especially are affected the most because they will eat other animals that have already eaten things that have pesticide or herbicide in them. So the toxins build up and it can cause real problems. And scientists estimate that pesticides poison 72 million birds every year. Wow, the numbers are really adding up. Another obstacle is climate change, weather conditions. And I'm sure that you've probably heard a lot about climate change these days. High winds along with rain or snow can be a real challenge to a migrating bird. Birds have to work a lot harder to fly or land, or they have to wait through a storm. And the storms can be dangerous when birds have nowhere to land, like when they're flying over the ocean, like our wood thrush. So let me tell you about the Wood Thrush Project. Forsyth Audubon got together with some scientists from the Smithsonian and did a project where we captured gently several wood thrushes up at Pilot Mountain, put little GPS radio backpacks on them, released them, and then caught them back the next spring, hoping to find one with a radio backpack, a GPS backpack that would actually be a bird coming back to nest. So we've made a film about that in conjunction with the Climate Listening Project.
This is the story of a bird and the people who love it. The wood thrush spends its summers breeding in woodland areas throughout the eastern United States. We met with Forsyth Audubon, a chapter in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to hear the story of their wood thrush project. So tell me about how we're going to find this location and find the location where the wood thrush came back to.
Okay, these are all the locations of all the birds. Okay, and this is the particular one that was recaptured, and we have the GPS coordinates of that, so we're going to head toward the GPS coordinates for that bird.
They researched with scientists from the Smithsonian's Migratory Connectivity Project, along with Audubon, North Carolina, the National Audubon Society, and the Audubon International Alliances Program. A tiny new state-of-the-art technology could possibly provide the GPS data needed to show the route of the wood thrush's migration and exactly what habitats and important bird areas they're depending on.
So we're standing on a ridge between the initial capture location, which was over on that ridge. We had a set of nets downhill there and a set going diagonally up the ridge. And then in 2015, we recaptured the birds up on this ridge behind us, again with multiple net sets and playback, but it was the first net run of the morning that we caught the bird. Which is just really kind of amazing.
The geolocator backpack and migration data were intact. They discovered the wood thrush had journeyed over 3,000 miles round trip from North Carolina to the small Caribbean nation of Belize and back to the same exact location in Pilot Mountain the following spring. So we traveled with Kim Brand of Forsyth Audubon and Audubon, North Carolina, to explore this connection.
Our wood thrush was just about 2 to 3 kilometers actually northwest from where we are, in very similar habitat to this, all dense broadleaf forest.
Nice. So in that right over there, our wood thrush spent all of last winter.
Yeah.
Wow. Landed in North Carolina.
And spent
Came
the winter
all the way here
in Belize.
to you, to your
Yes.
backyard, and made it all the way back to North Carolina.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
These birds make these amazing journeys, hundreds of miles every year, to return back to Belize to share this habitat. Those stories are important. It's not just a bird you see flying around. It's an amazing creature that's able to do that journey and come back. We need to ensure that their habitat is here, it's protected.
Animals don't have boundaries. Animals go from North America to Central America to South America, and it's where the habitats are. The experience we had with Forsyth really showed the connectivity, but it also helped people to really make the connectivity, and that from a conservation point of view, you can't have just one group doing their work. We have to do it holistically.
The way climate change works on a bird is kind of at the individual level. We often think of birds that are vulnerable to climate change as having to kind of pick up and move. Actually, for a lot of our land birds, that's not how it works. You know, the bird tries to stay where he was born, where he's been raising young. Wood thrush can live to be 10 or 12 years old in the wild, and they do come back to the same places year after year. The food that they depend on gets stressed, reduces. The forest that they depend on is stressed. What happens is that individual bird, that male and female that are trying to raise babies, aren't as successful. And so if you look at those maps, a lot of times you start out with this dense yellow and it becomes just this kind of pale yellow as all the birds kind of wink out of that space. So to me, that's why it's really important to work to make the habitat that we've got just as productive as it can possibly be. You know, protect the forest, make the forest as resilient as possible to climate change, and that makes the wood thrush and other forest birds as resilient to climate change as possible.
It's lost 60% of its population over the last 40 years. Now that's an alarm bell that's going off in a lot of people's minds.
The birds really put it into focus in terms of the fact that the problems we're facing are everywhere. Habitat destruction, climate change, impacts to protected areas, all of them are being experienced globally, and I think the birds are messengers.
It's like a bird speaking to us, telling us, hey, something is wrong, you know?
We can take action starting in our own backyards by growing native plants. Protecting our forests is the first step towards full life cycle conservation.
With a sort of bipartisan support, we could really create the situations, I guess, the recipe for keeping a lot of what we see today around so that our future generations can experience it.
Farmers are welcoming birds and pollinators on their farms. Around the world, bird guide trainings and education programs are creating opportunities.
Okay, if you can see up there.
The head of our education department, she goes out and she talks with the corporations around about certain things about climate change and the Lights Out program. She also talks to the young folks, which I think is one of the key things that we have to do as the ambassadors for Audubon. We need to get more young folks involved because we need to pass the torch to them.
The Climate Listening Project learned how we can all work together to protect the birds we love.
All right, so we learned that our wood thrush went all the way to Belize, a round trip of over 3,000 miles wearing a tiny GPS backpack. It came all the way back to Pilot Mountain to nest, and we learned a lot about that bird. So anyway, the next thing we're going to learn about is how to rescue a woodpecker. Why rescue a woodpecker? Because it happens to be a yellow-bellied sapsucker, which is our only migratory woodpecker in this area, and it might have crashed into a building window and it might have a bad headache. So the first thing you're going to do if you are going to try to rescue a migratory bird is sign up for Dead Bird Patrol. Hopefully we find a bird that's not dead, but a lot of times we do find dead birds. So you sign up for Dead Bird Patrol, and if you are under the age of 18, you're going to want to sign up with an experienced adult. And your Dead Bird Patrol kit is what you will receive. And in it, you will have a permit in order to collect these dead or injured birds, because otherwise it's actually illegal to possess any part of a migratory bird. You'll have a flashlight, you'll have your note paper where you can write down what type of bird it was and where it was located and the date, and also some plastic bags for dead birds and paper bags for live birds that may need a little help getting to a safe place. Then we're going to look for a woodpecker or any other bird you may encounter with a headache. We're going to focus on the woodpecker today. First, you need to be able to pick it up correctly, and because you don't want to hurt it, but you want to get a good grip. So you're going to grasp the bird with your hand and put its head between your pointer finger and your middle finger, and you're going to grab the bird from the back so that your hand is over its wings, and that way the bird will stay safe and you will be able to get a good grip. Then, if this bird is live, you're going to put it in a paper bag so it can still breathe. And you might pinch a couple small holes in it, but then you're going to clip the top of it together so that it will stay secure. And then you're going to take it somewhere safe. Now, if it's fall, we're going to take it south of town so that it can keep going south and not come back through town and crash into another window. If it's springtime, we're going to take this bird north of town so that maybe it will keep heading north and again, not crash into another building. So let's see how we did with the yellow-bellied sapsucker rescue.
Here he is. Beautiful little bird. He's got a few red feathers starting on his head. There he is, the yellow belly. There you go. Pointed feathers, typical woodpecker tail, that third leg tail. Okay, here you go. Keep heading south, buddy. How about this tree? There you go. Bye. And remember, keep your lights out and your shutters closed, Winston-Salem. So, we had a successful rescue and release. Yay! Well, what can you do to help migratory birds? You can certainly turn off your extra lights, especially outside upward-facing white lights at night during migration, during the spring and the fall, especially. You can cover your windows so that if you do have lights on inside, at least it won't be shining out where it'll distract the birds and get them to fly off course. You can also keep your cats indoors so they will not capture those birds. And you can communicate with people in other states or other countries, anybody you know, about protecting birds. You can create a bird-friendly habitat in your yard. You can plant native plants. You can provide fresh water. You can put up a nest box. And be sure not to use any pesticides or herbicides in your yard. Also, this program comes with a kid's bird pack. And in your bird pack, you'll find all kinds of tools that'll be great for learning more about bird migration, for building your own bird feeder, and for creating your own bird-friendly garden. So, let us know if you'd like one of these packs. But most of all, you can have fun watching birds and sharing your love of birds with others. Thank you for watching.